Greetings, friends. There's a quote from the Duke of Wellington, which is supposed to have been spoken by him following the Battle of Waterloo, in which Napoleon was finally defeated. He said something to the effect of, it was the closest run thing you ever saw, or it was the nearest run thing you ever saw. And that's what this chess game was like between me and the bot Nelson. I've had a history where Nelson used to beat me all the time, but now I can kind of beat him if I pay attention. I can usually start as black and even beat him. He's very aggressive with the queen. He moves the queen out early on in the game, so I have adapted. I have found out how to deal with this threat. And my own tactic is actually, I don't mind trading queens. I do that with other opponents too. I just find the queen to be a very volatile force on the game board, and I don't mind sacrificing my queen if it means the opponent won't have his. So we open up here, and I'm just trying to match what Nelson is doing. He's going to bring out this queen here. We see he's coming right to the center. I'm already willing to sacrifice it. He doesn't want to do it. I've already made a huge mistake. Almost, practically a fatal mistake. I wasn't paying attention. I've faced him in this scenario many times. This time I was just sleepy. Not a good start to the battle. The general is looking poor in front of his troops. Maybe he didn't have his coffee in the morning or something, and now the enemy's affected. Like, this would be like letting the enemy cavalry into your rear, into your supply train. Look what's going to happen. He's going to take my knight, and there's nothing I can do about it. I try to sacrifice my queen to see if he'll bite, but why would he? He takes the knight. Now I'm sure that, why did I choose to do this? Other people would have said, oh, well, hold on to your queen. And nope, I'm very steadfast about this rule. Sacrifice the queen, especially to Nelson, because Nelson relies on the queen more than other bots. He's used to having the queen. He wants to use the queen. So get rid of it. He takes it. Okay, good. So this is what I wanted to do. Now, this is bad. I'm missing two pieces. I'm missing a rook and a bishop. No, a rook and a knight. And any pawns? Not any pawns. And we've traded queens. My positioning is not bad. It could be improved. And he's doing minor things. I'm moving. I'm again, this is important. Control the center of the board. This will win you the game more than half the time. This is one of the lessons here. One of the lessons is do not give up. I could have surrendered there. It would not have been a good idea to surrender because you still have major pieces. But sometimes, if you want to avoid the slaughter of your troops, it could be the noble thing to do. You just sign an accord with the enemy right away, and then you prevent a slaughter. But in this case, it would have been rash to surrender too early. I don't think a chess game needs to be fought to the last pieces all the time. I mean, or if one side is clearly winning, that you need to sacrifice all of your pawns. Those are like your little guys. Those are your countrymen. And you are their noble king who's leading them. So, if you're going to think you have a good chance to win the game, then let's hope that that's based on a good foundation. So we continue here, and now he's being aggressive still. I wouldn't call this an effective move, though, because I can get out of the way. But by moving my king, I do lose the chance to have a castle in the future. But I don't put a huge emphasis on castling. It's never made a huge difference to me. So now we're just checking that bishop, and he's obviously not stupid like some of these other bots who would just. Sometimes Nelson is stupid, actually. He'll make some stupid mistakes, but generally they're smart enough not to waste pieces like that, so they'll behave like a reasonably intelligent human being. Now, of course, he's smart enough to save his bishop, but this has gotten him nowhere. He's wasted time, and I have, by forcing him back, also improved my positioning on the board. Now, I'm curious to see whether he takes this leading pawn. He doesn't, and he instead tries to lock down, and this is where we get a risk of a real stalemate occurring. We don't want to have too many pieces moved out on either side without any movement, because then it gets into a situation where it becomes difficult to make any further moves. And that's not really a situation either side wants to be in. This needs to be broken up soon. It needs to be broken up quickly. Make sacrifices. Good. Now we have some movement. We can clear things up in the beginning. And I mean in the middle. We see some more movement here. Nothing. Now he's already challenging me here. My impulse is always going to be check these pawns. Well, I wouldn't say always, but you see how my positioning is so much better than his now. I have now established myself in the center of the board. He has not even moved out any of his major pieces. My pawns are going to have to pick up the slack where I've been missing some of my heavy fighting capabilities. He's coming down here with his bishop to threaten my king. I move out of the way. I don't know what he's doing right now, but we've got to keep the pressure on him. Do not surrender. Continue to fight. I could have tried to be defensive. No, when I lost those pieces, you must, if anything, take chances and try to keep the momentum on your side. We've succeeded in keeping the momentum on our side. Now, knights can be very dangerous, just like queens, because you can't always predict exactly where a knight could end up on the board within 3 or 4 moves, unless you're one of those chess geniuses that they can calculate ahead. Because knights can jump over things. They can move very quickly in that sense, even though they're not as valuable as a bishop or a rook or a queen. We see him being too conservative, perhaps, but he's trying to free these pieces up. You see, he's kind of locked in. His rooks are still locked in place. Now I put his king in check, so the king has to move. It moves out of the way. I take the pawn without any price to myself, and his rook is totally exposed there. He knows it's lost, but knowing that it's lost, he moves the pawn up to therefore threaten my bishop. I honestly wasn't even paying attention to the bishop. I take the rook, he takes the bishop. I realized that, okay, it was somewhat of a trade-off. Still a trade-off I would make. I would trade a bishop and a rook plus his rook and pawn any day, except in this situation it's not like I can make that deal every time, because I've got to be very careful. I only have 3 major pieces. He has 5 major pieces here. I have a rook, a bishop, and a knight. He has 2 knights, 1 rook, 2 bishops. So he's still outnumbering me. In that sense, he could still win this game. This is entirely up in the air, but my positioning is superior to his. He's got a traffic jam with his 2 pawns there on the left side of the board. So those pawns are less effective because they can't support each other when they're behind one another and like that. I am able to take one of those pawns anyways. I guess it didn't matter. He's still doing nothing. And what is he doing? Nothing. So really, I guess I guess I just didn't make any mistakes from here on in. It's not like I did a great job. Just you sort of absorbed the hit you take early on in the game. Try to conserve what you have, but try to maintain the momentum on your side and wait for the opponent to make mistakes. At that point, try to have a poker face and not let on to what you're thinking, and just wait for the opponent to make a mistake, lest you make a mistake first and then totally finish yourself. Whoa, I just made a huge mistake. Look at that. See, I was just saying don't make any mistakes, and I just made a huge mistake. Of all the pieces I could have lost, I lost my rook. I only have a knight and a bishop and some well-positioned pawns. I can only rely on my pawns, but that's not enough. You can't just rely on your pawns. This is when I start having to use my king. And this is something else you should keep in mind. Don't be afraid to use your king in the game past the halfway point. Once you're past halfway through the game, it becomes crucial anyways if you're not clearly winning. You're going to lack positioning, and you have to take advantage of the fact that a king can actually move in any direction. It just doesn't have the range that a queen does. You have to start doing something. I will start to do that. For some reason, he moved his bishop there, and I didn't even see that I had a chance to take it. So I totally missed the opportunity to take his bishop. So he obviously is playing stupidly. Then I took his knight, which he didn't have to do. He could have moved the knight over here, and then at least I could have taken it, but then he would have taken my knight, so it would have been a trade-off. He could have at least done a trade-off. Instead, he chose to take my pawn for no good reason, and then I take it. And he cannot touch that pawn right now because it's guarded by my knight. So he moves his bishop back up here. Now I'm starting to move this king forward because it's looking bad. Honestly, for me, even though we've both screwed up, we've both been sloppy on this battlefield. We've both made huge mistakes. Arguably, I've made slightly more. But this is a really crucial situation, and you can't be thinking about protecting your king. I mean, yes, you have to think about protecting your king. But at this situation, the best way to protect your king is to use your king because it's the only other asset you really have with mobility at this point. Put some pressure on that knight and that rook. They don't have any support from pawns. The knight is going to be awkward. If anything, you could say, I'm prepared to sacrifice my knight for that knight, that would at least balance things out. You see, he's got so much firepower, but he's boxed in on the right. His positioning is the whole reason he lost, as I'm letting on. He could have won right here. You just preserve your pieces, and for goodness sakes, do something with those bishops. Get them out. Get them out. Do something. But he continues to dilly-dally. I continue to move up my king because it's the only thing I can do. You have to do something brazen. Do something brazen like Napoleon, even though Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo. Now he's finally figured out that he's got to get out of there, but it's too late. He's trying to break out of that hole there on the right. It's too late. I don't know why he chose to sacrifice his rook for my knight. I don't know why. That's a horrible trade-off, but maybe he was thinking it's worth it because he still has two bishops and a knight to my only single bishop if I did this. So I still, in a way, should lose here. I'm outnumbered by 3 major pieces to 1. However, my king is brazenly out in the foreground of the battlefield, practically leading the offense. And my pawns are swift behind their leader. And his bishop is unable to come in at the right angle and finds himself in a situation where he allows my pawn to advance. I don't know why. I would have sacrificed it. At that point, you know the pawn will become a queen. Everyone knows that if it gets to the other side. At least that's what you can make it if you want to, which obviously I would. But then he loses that bishop. It could have been avoided. He does not doing anything with the knight. Now he's trying to do something, but it's too late and loses the knight right there. Why? Why? Now he's thinking, yeah, he could get the queen on that side, but I'm not going to let it happen. It's impossible. Now it's too late. It's too late, but it's so close. This could go either way. I only have 2 pawns. He still outnumbers me. He still outnumbers me by 1 piece, but he's not using the king in an effective way. Now it's too late. He's made the fatal mistake. He didn't try to stop that pawn. He didn't see all the possibilities that could play out here. Nelson has been defeated. It was a darn near run thing. It was the closest run thing you ever saw. Hasta luego, amigos.